If it was a doctor's child, a cop's child, a nurse, I'm almost guaranteed this case would have been already solved. But because of their profession, they think that they're dirty girls, and they're not, they're still human beings. And they need to realize they need to put the girl's profession behind them and think of it as their own child. I received a phone call on June 6th of 2010 from my daughter's pimp to inform me and my mom that my daughter Megan was missing. The first thing I did was put on Facebook that I'm not ready to bury my daughter, because I knew.
You knew that?
I knew that the outcome wasn't going to be good.
And what made you feel that way? What made you think that?
It's a mother's instinct. Mothers just know.
As we approach the anniversary, on behalf of the Suffolk County Police Department, I want to convey to the loved ones and the family of all the victims that we are dedicated to do everything we can to solve this case. I've invited the FBI to work in close collaboration with the Suffolk County Police Department in investigating these murders, and I want to thank the FBI for agreeing to do that.
Gilgo was like any other beach in Long Island. It was a long strip. It's very, very busy in the summertime, very desolated in the wintertime. Over the span of a year, 10 human remains were found along that stretch.
We've conducted an extensive search with our canine units.
At about 3:30, officers discovered what appeared to be another human remain.
You know, there are no suspects at this time.
It's a large-scale operation. Obviously, it's over 4 miles from here down to the tower.
Collectively, we want to bring to justice this animal.
5 years have passed, and we still don't have answers. It was a search for Shannon Gilbert that led police to discover these remains. We do know she was an escort, and she was responding to an ad on Craigslist. She was summoned to Oak Beach by a John. According to Mari Gilbert, Shannon felt she needed to earn money to buy her a Mother's Day gift.
My last conversation I had with Shannon was, we were talking about her coming to visit for Mother's Day. And I told her, I said, Shannon, don't go out. I said, I don't need any gift from you. Just come and visit. That's my present. And she says, oh, don't worry, Mommy, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. And that was our last conversation.
Former Commissioner Dormer says that a canine officer doing a routine exercise in December, also looking for Gilbert at the same time, stumbles upon the first body. And then 2 days later, another 3 bodies.
Our investigation indicates that each of the victims had been posting ads on computer websites for various escort and other services prior to their disappearance and death.
After the first 4, they found another. Then 3 more. Then 2 more. None of them were Shannon.
We are doing as thorough a search as we possibly can, a diligent, systematic, and thorough search, and assured that there is nothing else out here. We're doing the best effort we can. Short of going in there and cutting all the brush down, you know, it's a tough area to search.
What activities these victims may have engaged in prior to their murders does not matter. They were young women whose lives were cut tragically short.
To this day, it's been over a year since I've heard from them. They won't talk. They won't update with any anything that they're working on in not only Shannon's death, but the other girls' death as well.
I covered a Suffolk County murder. That was a very difficult case to solve. And it took them over a year to finally make the arrests and get the convictions. Most of the stuff being behind the scenes, most of the stuff the victim's family had no idea was happening. Speaking from my own experience, in a case such as the Gilgo murders, I would guarantee that on a daily basis, that case is being investigated by the best detectives that they have in that department.
And just let us know. Have they progressed any further? Has it stayed the same, or what? But their answer is always, can't tell you nothing, can't tell you nothing. We don't want to hear, we can't tell you nothing anymore.
We don't want somebody who may have done something to Miss Waterman to know what we're doing or what our thinking is, what investigative clues there are, or what investigative techniques are being employed.
Do you plan to make the Gilgo investigation a priority?
Of course, all murder cases in Suffolk County should be a top priority. When I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I specialized in cold case murders. That means murders that lay dormant for more than decades. I think it's very important, whenever you have loss of life, it's extremely important to make sure that you diligently work to solve those cases. The only objective is not to get a dangerous person off the street. That's obviously a primary objective, but it's also to bring justice to the family.
The area where the women's bodies were found has a lot of thickets and bramble. It's very hard to get in there as just walking to it and say, oh, I'm going to go in. You can't do that. It's very difficult to navigate.
It's such an optimal location to get rid of a body. The thickets are just so rich.
A little more than a year after the first body was found, Shannon Gilbert's remains were positively identified. Suffolk County Police do not consider Shannon's death part of the Gilgo murder investigation.
Because they were all found together, and I consider it a big family now, that I'm not going to exclude one person because Shannon was found in that radius. That's why I include Shannon also.
Whether it was the same killer or whatever, it's because of her my sister was found, and she will always be a part of this no matter what happened.
Shannon had a destiny, and God used her as a vessel to sacrifice her life so that others can be found.
Former Commissioner Richard Dormer gave us a theory that he believed that these killings were the work of one serial killer. That caused a huge firestorm.
The issue of one killer, two killers, three killers for the 10 remains that have been found has been discussed. And I've been asked about the theory that it's one serial killer. The facts of the case indicate one person.
When he says that the theory is that there is only one killer, I very, very much disagree with that theory.
By using that word, especially by a public official, it sounds the alarms and can put the public into panic. The definition of a serial killer is one person that kills at least 4 people. From a strictly speculative standpoint, and this is solely my opinion, from my own experience, my guess would be that all of the bodies that were found on Gilgo were the work of one killer. I've interviewed or corresponded with probably at least 10 serial killers. My guess would be that the Gilgo killer is familiar with Long Island. He probably lives on Long Island or has lived on Long Island and probably blends very normally into society. You can't be paranoid about who your neighbor is. I think people should be aware that he very easily could walk among us and be considered, a nice person. I think the likelihood of this person getting caught is very high. There's also the possibility that he might be in jail for something else, maybe something completely unrelated to murder. He could be caught 15 years from now when he's arrested for something else and his DNA pops up in the database.
was a loving mom. Megan was a loving daughter. She was an aunt, a niece. She just had a heart of gold. She would do anything. She'd give the last penny in her pocket to somebody if they wanted it.
Shannon was very, very smart. She was very intelligent. She loved to cook. She was a really, really good cook. She loved to hang out with her sisters.
Not a day that goes by that I don't think about this. It's a non-stop thing.
Until you see it, until you see a family member have that closure and speak to you about it, it's almost hard to, it's hard to explain. It changes their lives. When every day they have someone who they know was taken away from them by another human being, and that person is out and about, or it hasn't been brought to justice in any capacity. That's just crushing.
Just pick up the phone. It doesn't have to be every week. At least once a month, it will take you 2 seconds. Say, hey, listen, there's nothing new going on in the case. I just want you to know that we are still working on it. Will that make me feel better? Yes, knowing that they're still doing it. And it's not just sitting off somewhere in a dark corner.
I can guarantee that if this Gilgo Beach killer is never caught, nobody is ever held responsible for those killings, that a lot of those detectives that worked on that case pretty regularly are going to be thinking about that case for the rest of their lives. Having done this many times, I can tell you there is nothing more satisfying than telling a family that you are bringing to justice the person that killed their son or daughter.